Within the first couple hours of the first episode of The Bad Batch, my Patreon started to fill up with questions like this one from Joshua. So that was a big chunk of the Canon comic that just got ditched. It's getting harder and harder to reconcile the ways that TV and films ride roughshod over book and comic canon. Is the promise that all media are equally canon finally dead? I'm not sure I mind, but it's definitely starting to wear away at whatever instincts I have to be a completionist. To quickly summarize the issue for anyone who hasn't read the comic, the opening 10 minutes of The Bad Batch show us Order 66 from Caleb Doom's perspective, the Padawan who will one day become Kanan Jarrus. After a battle on the planet Kaller, his clones turn on him and his master Depa Billaba. Depa tells him to run and dies fighting the clones while he escapes, and he is briefly pursued by Hunter and Crosshair. In the comic, the Bad Batch is not present. Order 66 is executed in the night while things are peaceful. The Jedi and clones participated in a battle the day before, but things had calmed down. The clones Gray and Styles bond with Caleb, and then Order 66 goes off and he escapes while Depa Billaba dies covering his retreat. Also, her lightsaber is green. Let me start by saying that I mostly agree with Joshua and people who get frustrated by this stuff. 6 years ago, it felt like a big thing that we're resetting the Star Wars universe, and now we have this canon, and everything is going to count and tie together. And then stuff like this happens, and we have to start doing mental gymnastics. In a perfect world, everything would fit together, but that's not how good storytelling usually works. The comic needed that quiet moment before Order 66 so we could see how close the Jedi and the clones were. The show needed an action sequence to reintroduce the Bad Batch and their skills. I do have the question of, if you need to change the order of events, why use Caleb at all? Why not a different set of Jedi? And that's a tough one, because I do like seeing Caleb in this show. I like that the Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels are becoming even more connected. I guess I'm just getting used to using my own headcanon a lot more, because this is not the first time events have been altered from comics or books to fit into television. I mentioned this in my review for the episode, but The Siege of Mandalore is different from the Ahsoka book. Cobb Vanth's story in The Mandalorian is different from the Aftermath trilogy. So when it happened in The Bad Batch, I pretty quickly just altered how everything went down in my head. Maybe Order 66 didn't happen in the middle of the night, maybe it happened the next day after the Jedi and the clones entered another battle, and the Bad Batch showed up, and so on. I found that the more I view each story in Star Wars as mythology, the more helpful it becomes. These tales we're reading or watching aren't a perfect representation of a real history. They're stories being passed down from a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Details might get muddled. A human and a Rodian sit down at a bar. Some people think the human shot first, some people think the Rodian shot first. All we know for sure is that the Rodian did not walk away. If you take a step back from these stories and get a larger perspective, the details become less important, and in broad strokes, it all still lines up. Depa Billaba and her Padawan Caleb traveled to the planet Kaller, where their clones, led by Captain Gray, killed the Jedi Master while Caleb escaped into the woods. That is true in the comic and in the show. The emotional core remains the same, and that's ultimately what's important, not what color Billaba's lightsaber is. Although for the life of me, I do not know why they changed it from green to blue. Ahsoka's blue lightsabers I understand, there was a story reason for it. I have no idea why they altered Billaba's. And while I do find that strange and, yes, annoying, it just doesn't matter. I wish every story element fit together perfectly all the time, but that's just not gonna happen. I think making videos like the Canon Timeline have helped me think a little more flexibly, and I admit that there are limits to this thinking. For example, I would have been really upset if Gray had died in this episode, and I watched it very carefully to make sure he didn't, because he has one of the best Star Wars comic moments in that Kanan series. If he had died on Kaller, I would have had a lot of trouble and frustration reconciling that. So I'm not trying to say you shouldn't be frustrated or anything when this stuff happens, but I am saying that it's probably not going to stop happening, and this is how I deal with it as a Star Wars completionist myself. I've had people asking about canon tiers as well, like do TV or movies trump publishing? Should people consider The Bad Batch or the Kanan comic to be more correct? I think that's a personal choice. Choose the version you like more, because like I said, I think they both work together. You know, if you squint a little bit. Mr. JD Rice on my Patreon expressed some concern that the Cassian show might overwrite the Cassian and K2SO comic that came out a while back. And I think it will at least do what The Bad Batch did here. But I could also see it telling us that Cassian and K2 met in a completely different way, and to be honest, I'm perfectly fine with that, because I didn't really care for that comic. So the point I'm trying to make is, pick what you like and leave what you don't. Star Wars was never meant to be the historical retelling of this universe. George Lucas described the first Star Wars movie as a morality tale. Their modern-day mythology is meant to inspire hope and impart lessons. There's absolutely nothing wrong with trying to enjoy it as a full-fledged history. I like to enjoy Star Wars that way. But if you're going to do that, just recognize it's not exactly a priority for the storytellers, and you're probably going to have to be a little flexible in your thinking from time to time. Anyway, that's just my opinion, how I handle it whenever the details in canon don't match. I wish they did, but as long as the broad strokes of the story line up, I just figure it out and I move along. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel to keep up with all our Bad Batch and Star Wars coverage, follow us on Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and consider checking out our Patreon page. As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.